I'm excited to be here today to talk to you all about nutrition guidance for optimum brain and body health. There are so many times a day that we eat and so many chances for us to, put good foods into our body, meaningful foods as well. So I've got a great presentation for you all today. Uh, I want to say that the presentation is sponsored by Catholic Charities of Hawaii, Kuke, and then Heritage Health, and that these caregiver workshops are made possible by the Elderly Affairs Division of the City and County of Honolulu through federal Older Americans Act funding. And none of these organizations directed the information that I'm providing today. So let's get into the agenda and what we're going to talk about. I am thinking of this presentation kind of like the everything bagel that I have pictured here. So I have a little bit of everything for you all. We're going to start by doing a little welcome introductions and then get into some general nutrition tips. So that way we all have some great foundational knowledge, which is really helpful to build off of and to incorporate good nutrition practices into your overall health. And then we're going to talk about nutrition and chronic diseases, nutrition, brain health, followed by some holiday tips. And then we'll get into some practical application, suggestions for meal times and people with dementia, since I know many of you are caregiving those people with Alzheimer's and related dementias. So I wanted to give a little bit of a sampling, kind of like a poo-poo platter for today's webinar. So please let's do some introductions. I'd love to know who you are in the chat and also what foods remind you of your childhood. This is a picture of me when I was a child. I have always been a foodie, I'm eating some yogurt with looks like some fruit flavored yogurt and really enjoying it. If you ever have me over for dinner, you'll see that even though I am sometimes not the mess, I'm sometimes a little bit of a messy eater. I've come a long way with my with my eating habits. So, um, yeah, and then, I was thinking about what foods remind me of my childhood, and I would say fish, different types of fish. I grew up when I was very young. I lived in Alaska, and then we moved to the Big Island when I was in elementary school. So I always loved growing up and going fishing with my dad. And anytime, I eat fish, it reminds me of being back there with my dad as a little girl. Let's see, we have got musu bees, mangoes, pickled garlic that my grandmother made, shave ice, oh, homemade baked bread, yogurt, ooh, oatmeal, apples, mangoes, lychee, lots of local fruit. Oh gosh, French fries, pickles, and ice cream, grilled cheese sandwiches. I loved those things as a child as well. Baked beans, homemade biscuits. Gosh, this I don't know about you, but this talk is making me hungry already. Same with Dorothy's hungry now too, rice. So yeah, we've got so many great foods that remind of our childhood, and a lot of them are really healthy as well. We've got some good sushi, that's really healthy. You've got the fish from the protein, carbohydrates, some good vegetables. A lot of you mentioned different fruits and vegetables as well. So there's a lot of great foods that we grew up eating and carried those foods instilled with us those nutrients and helped us grow. And, now we get to have those feelings and appreciations for those good, healthy foods. Not the healthiest, but hamburger helper. I had a hamburger helper a time or two in my childhood as well. Same with Pop-Tarts. So, it's it's a balanced diet. You got to have them all. And Pop-Tarts are many a child's favorite food. Well, yeah, thank you. Thank you all for sharing. And let's get into some general nutrition and really kind of lay the foundation for a lot of the nutrition talk. And the first thing we're going to talk about is your plate and what your plate should look like. Right? We just named so many different foods, right? Your plate could be composed of all kinds of different foods. But when you think about healthy plate, we're first of all talking about a 9-inch plate, which is smaller than most people think of when we're talking about the dinner plate. But you want to use a 9-inch plate, and with that, you want about a quarter of your plate to be grains, whole grains, something like brown rice, quinoa, uh, whole wheat bread. Those are all really great grains. And then protein as well. We've got, chicken, fish, uh, ham, all, different sources of protein. And then the other half of your plate should be fruits and vegetables. And then, the My Plate logo has dairy on the side. Uh, the main thing with the dairy is that we always want to make sure we're getting calcium and vitamin D. And so dairy is obviously a great source of calcium, vitamin D. Sometimes people might have yogurt instead. As you saw from my picture, I am a lover of yogurt, and that's something that can be sometimes a little bit easier tolerated if you have problems digesting dairy. Otherwise, there's fortified orange juice that brings in that calcium and vitamin D as well. And you can always have water on the side too. So a great, great thing to drink with your meals all the time is water. And then let's talk about portion sizes a little bit as well. We talked about the plate, what should be on there. What should a serving of fish look like, right? We want 3-ounce servings. You go to the restaurant, I know when they say, oh, 9-ounce serving, 12-ounce servings. Well, if you order that, good thing you can have some leftovers to take home. Because when we think about a portion, right, we want your fish to be about the size of your cell phone here. So if this is my plate, this would be my fish. Another thing that I want to point out on this portion size guide is rice, pasta, mashed potatoes, and beans. You want about a half cup of serving is about the size of a tennis ball. And then leafy greens as well. A cup of leafy greens is about the size of a baseball. So, think about, you can even, I know we have this PowerPoint available to you, so you can print off the side or find another image like it. It's helpful to keep in your fridge, or keep on your fridge, put in somewhere in your kitchen, so that way you can take a look at the portion sizes as you make your food each day. It can really help you evaluate how much of each food item you're eating. And that really kind of plays into the next slide, right? Which is the nutrition facts label. I I always ask the question about who looks at the nutrition facts label and whenever I present. And usually I get a lot of smirks and very few people raise their hands to look at the nutrition label. But I want to encourage you all to look at the nutrition label because there's really a lot of good stuff in here. And you should know what you're eating. Learn what's in these foods that you're spending your hard-earned cash on, coming home, making a meal with. So here's kind of my guide to look at the nutrition facts label. Right, right, we want to start with the serving size. And so you see that in blue, the serving size for this food is 2/3 of a cup. Okay, if I eat 2/3 of a cup usually, then that's great. That is easy math. I can just take all these numbers and know I'm consuming 100% of everything. If I eat more than that, if I eat about a cup and a half, right, that's double the serving size. So I want to double everything that I'm putting, that is on the nutrition facts label. So that means calories go from 230 to 460. That way I get an accurate idea of what I'm putting into my body. With the nutrition facts label and the nutrition facts, there's some foods that we want to limit. And those are things like your fats, your saturated fats, and your trans fats. Your sodium as well is a big thing, and added sugars. So try to limit those. And then the nutrients that we want to get more of are things like your dietary fiber, your protein, and the vitamins and minerals that are featured on the bottom of the nutrition facts label. I also want to point out a couple of things about the daily value, which you see in purple on the, let's see, right-hand side of the column, or maybe it's the left-hand side for you. I am better with nutrition than I am my rights and lefts, but it's in purple. I know that for sure. So daily value, anything that's 5% or less is considered low. Anything 20% or more is considered high. But, this is also based on a 2,000 calorie diet. So some people might need more than a 2,000 calorie diet, and some people might need less. It just depends on your specific body size, or your activity level, your age. They all play a role into how much you need to eat each day. But this is all just standardized, so it's based on a 2,000 calorie diet. Now, going back to what I said about eating, a cup and a half of this food instead of 2/3, right? We're going to double it. So saturated fat here is 5% daily value for one serving. But now, and that, 5% or less is low, so it would count, except I eat double. So it would be 10% of saturated fat, right? So that's why it's really important to think about how much food you're eating. But a little bit quick and dirty about the nutrition facts label. And I encourage you all to play around with it and take a look in the store about the different food items, because you'll be surprised. Even cans of beans, right? One might say lower sodium, but it might have more sodium than another can of beans that doesn't advertise it being low sodium. So it always helps to check. And also in the grocery store, right? These food labels can sometimes be very confusing. Uh, and I've put some of the common terms that you see on food labels here on this slide for you. Uh, I won't go through all of them in this presentation, but I just want to point out a few things. That when something is low in calories, right, they're talking about less than 40 calories per serving. When something is light, spelled either Lite or Light, either spelling means that there's a third fewer calories or 50% less fat. So they've modified the original recipe to make it a little bit healthier. And also, if something is saying it's low sodium, it's less than 140 milligrams per serving. If something is very low sodium, it's less than 35 milligrams a serving. So these terms, they seem so similar in the store: low sodium, very low sodium, but there are actually numbers associated with each of these food labels, and there needs to be as per the regulations. But uh, yeah, that doesn't always translate to the consumer sign, and it just seems like a bunch of jargon and marketing terms and whatnot. So I wanted you all to um, have some of these terms decoded. And then let's talk quickly about vitamin supplementation. A little bit different than food, right? Many of you might be taking vitamin supplements or thinking about taking vitamin supplements, and there you could do a whole webinar just on vitamin supplements. So I'm just gonna really scratch the surface today. Think about the food patterns that you're eating before you decide to if before you decide you might need a supplement. Are you getting those nutrients in your foods? Are there ways to easily tweak your diet and add in more foods with those nutrients? Or are you just um, having a lifestyle that makes it difficult to um, get the nutrients from your foods? Have you spoken with a medical professional about adding in supplementation? And that could be really helpful to think about if you're on other medications. You want to make sure that there's no uh, drug interactions as well. So before you start vitamin supplementation, think about the food that you're eating, the lifestyle that you live, and get some medical advice of your doctors. And if you decide to go ahead and implement vitamin supplementation, right? You want to choose the right supplements. And you can have too much of a good thing. So I want to talk to you about fat-soluble and water-soluble vitamins. Fat-soluble vitamins are something that gets absorbed into your into your fat. Excuse me. Excuse me. I apologize. I'm just getting over a cold. But fat-soluble vitamins are vitamins A, D, E, and K. Think a deck of cards, a deck on a house. That's how you can remember it. And then water soluble vitamins are something that your body will flush out. So they'll come out through your urine, and those are all the different vitamins other than A, D, E, and K. So important to think about when you supplement, because fat soluble vitamins, right, you don't want to get too much. You can get a toxicity from having too much. And then water soluble vitamins, you might not get that toxicity, but you'll just have very expensive urine if you have too much. So on all of your supplements, look at the amount of the vitamin, the percent daily value, and get one that's close to what you should be getting. You don't really need 3,000% daily value of your vitamins. If you do need that, right, it's probably under a direction of a doctor, and they're working with you on those specific cases. Also, think about the type of vitamin um, and the variability in vitamin content, and if that's important to you. So gummy vitamins are more variable in their vitamin content because of the way that the vitamins are placed onto the gummy. So if you are somebody that hates taking pills and only likes the gummy vitamins and is okay with that variability, then that's a great thing. If you need something that is a little more stable and then a pill or a chewable tablet might be a little better for you. Um, One thing to think about if you happen to be pregnant or planning to become pregnant, folate is something that is very important during this time, and um, it might be better to have a chewable or a swallowing tablet to make sure that you're getting enough folate. And then also choose a reputable brand of supplements as well. So there's many great brands out there, and I won't get into those today, but choose ones that are, widely known, that have a good reputation. Right, well, that is kind of the fundamentals 101. We've learned a little bit about nutrition labels, what our plate should look like, what some of the terms are in the grocery store, and then deciding whether or not to supplement. Now let's talk about nutrition and our brain and body health. So, as we age, which we are all aging all the time, which is a very good thing, right? We all want to age, but certain changes happen in our bodies as that happens. We might lose muscle and gain more fat. Our body processes become more efficient, so we need fewer calories, which gets a little tricky because we still need the same nutrition. We just have to do it on fewer and fewer calories as we age. Our height might shrink a little bit, and our heart and lung capacity might change. It might not expand as well as we breathe in. Arteries could clog, gastrointestinal tract changes. Right now, something might upset your stomach that never used to upset your stomach. Your muscles, yeah, could get weakened. You lose your muscles, they can get a little weaker. Skeleton and bones can weaken as well. Cognitive processes change. Sometimes it takes you longer to think through an issue. And there could be more mental or other behavioral health issues that pop up, such as depression. And then a decline in senses: sight, hearing, taste, and smell. Taste can be a little bit tricky. Many people want to add in salt as a way to enhance the taste, because the food doesn't taste as good now as they're aging. But obviously, salt is something we should limit, as we learned from previous slides. So that's a balance, and that's where other spices and herbs can really come in. Sense of smell and sight as well. The other thing that you think about with these declining senses is the ability um, to make sure that the food you're eating is safe. So, um, you might not recognize the smell of something that is starting to turn. Um, and so puts you at a little more risk of foodborne illness. And then also lose sense of thirst a little bit. So, always good to have water or hydrating foods uh, even before we feel thirsty, because when you feel thirsty, that's the first start to you're first starting to be dehydrated. So we want to start putting in those fluids before we get that sense of thirst, especially as we age, where we might not notice it. Oh, lots of lots of good stuff there. Um, but yeah, and also something to be aware about, and um, it's all things that we can support through healthy lifestyle factors and healthy eating. Also, along with that, let's talk about risk factors for dementia. And nutrition can be a powerful tool to um, help support your cognitive health. There's many modifiable risk factors that have to do with nutrition. Right? Things like hypertension, diabetes, obesity, having a BMI over 30, having high LDL cholesterol, or bad cholesterol, as people call it. Those are all things that can be affected by nutrition. So it's a powerful tool for cognitive health. And then, by the way, the ones in red, the high LDL cholesterol and untreated vision loss, are newer risk factors. So I put them in red just to highlight them. And then think about it. These modifiable risk factors account for nearly half of dementia. So, focusing on them and improving them can really um, ease the risk of dementia. And then, of course, there's non-modifiable risk factors, which are on the screen, but um, yeah, right? Age, family history, sex as well. And right, right, we've talked about some of the risk factors and the chronic conditions like diabetes, hypertension, overweight, obesity, even your cardiovascular heart disease. And let's talk about some nutrition recommendations that we can do for these chronic conditions. Now, they're all really very similar, right? We want to oftentimes maintain or decrease our calories, depending on what our original diet looks like. We want to make sure we're getting lots of fruits, vegetables, low-fat dairy. If there's one takeaway from me today is eat your fruits and vegetables. They're delicious. Many of you, they remind you of your childhood, and they're so great for um, helping to prevent these chronic conditions. You'll have to limit added sugar, limit added sodium, saturated fat. For diabetes specifically, right? We want to manage our carbohydrate intake. And then across the board for all these conditions, our physical activity is so important. So we want to increase our physical activity, whatever that looks like to you. It could be that you are starting to take the stairs or park farther away in the parking lot, or that you're going out for a walk or around the block after dinner, or maybe you're starting into a more full-fledged exercise routine. So whatever your physical activity level is now, there's ways to increase that. And then there's specific diets that have been shown to be really helpful for your brain health. And your Mediterranean diet, this is something that has been shown to be really effective uh, for improving your overall health. And some of the basic tenets of that are to eat lots of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans, legumes. And you want to have moderate amounts of low fat or fat-free dairy, fish, poultry, nuts, non-tropical vegetable oils. And um, and that's because, sometimes the tropical vegetable oils actually are high in saturated fat. So they taste good, but they're a little higher in saturated fat. So that's why the Mediterranean diet says to, just stick to those non-tropical vegetable oils. And then limit sugars, sodium, ultra-processed foods, refined carbohydrates, saturated fats, processed meats. This sounds a lot like the previous slide I showed you. And then the other diet that is very popular and has been proven to help with people with hypertension is called the Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension diet, otherwise called the DASH diet. I think you want just a little dash of salt. And again, we have eat lots of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, fat-free, low-fat dairy products, lean meats, nuts, seafoods, beans, vegetable oils. We want to limit sodium. This one, right, because it's specifically targeted for hypertension. We have a strict sodium limit of 1,500 to 2,300 milligrams a day of sodium, which it sounds may or may not sound like a lot, but can be very difficult to get in the American diet. And then also limit your saturated fats, your sweets and sugars, sugar sweetened beverages like your sodas, and then high fat dairy products. So pretty similar, right, to the Mediterranean diet and some of the other recommendations. And then I want to talk about the MIND diet, which is a little bit new on the scene, but there's been some really great evidence about the MIND diet support for cognitive health. And um, and while I'm telling you about the diet, you can look at these pictures and tell me, what foods do you eat that already incorporate these recommendations? Do you have a great poultry recipe that you love, or do you eat salads all the time? So I'll kind of talk through the diet, but as I'm doing that, feel free to put your recommendations and thoughts in the chat. So this is the MIND diet as kind of prescribed. We want 3 servings of whole grains each day, which would be about half of your whole grain servings, which actually does align with the dietary guidelines that say to make half of your grains whole grains. So that's something like brown rice, and you can even do a white and black brown rice blend if you're not quite quite ready to switch to full brown rice. And have at least one dark green salad and one other vegetable each day. So dark green salads are um, the for leafy green vegetables, right? The darker the color, the more nutrients it has. So things like iceberg lettuce, they don't have a whole lot of nutrients. They have a lot of water, which is great if you're worried about hydration. But darker green vegetables like kale, spinach, they have a lot more nutrients. And really, it's the vitamin K, vitamin E in these vegetables that are great for my health. And then berries at least twice a week if you can. I use frozen berries and I have them in my freezer. I like them with yogurt, and I'll put some berries in there as a sweet snack, or maybe do a berry smoothie. And it is actually the flavonoids they're called. So it's the coloring of the berries that are so full in antioxidants and so supportive for brain health. So when you see the bright, beautiful colors of the berries, know that those colors are actually contributing to your health, which is pretty neat. And then at least one 1 ounce serving of nuts each day. Beans or legumes at least every other day. So they want to have good amount of beans in this diet. Poultry at least twice a week, fish at least once a week. And then there's some things to limit as well. You want to limit butter and margarine, no more than a tablespoon a day, they say, and try using olive oil instead. So good healthy fat. Um, and then cheese, fried food, and fast food, no more than once a week. I am a big cheese lover. I have cheesy jokes and I like to eat cheese, so this one is very hard for me. Um, but cheese does come with, right, a lot of saturated fats, which we want to limit. And then pastries and sweets, less than 5 times a week. You can still, have them in your diet and enjoy them, but just less than, um, maybe, less, not every day, but maybe a few times a week. So that is the MIND diet as it was studied. I, um, you can stick with this if you like to have some framework about what to eat, or you can also try to just incorporate these foods more often. I love salads, but I also don't don't enjoy eating salad every single day. But I try to incorporate my dark green vegetables into smoothies. If I make a soup, I love putting some dark green vegetables in the soup, or you can cook them up in different ways. So there's a lot of things that you can do to tweak this diet and to make it your own, and to yeah, get some of these benefits. So yeah, it looks like got someone's already having some good healthy oils, avocado oil, um, yeah, excellent. Oh, I see you answered a question there. Okay, excellent. Uh, that's the Mind diet. So there's really great evidence about this diet that keeps coming out more and more, and it's showing really promising to be protective for your brain and your cognitive health. And then I want to leave you all leave a section with some practical tips to make it all happen. So, you're all very, very busy. And so these are just some tips. So we have cook more than just rice in your rice cooker. Right? You can add vegetables to it. You can add fish, other meats. So when you make your rice for dinner, just add your other stuff to it and have a one pot meal. Super simple. You also might be able to reduce the amount of sugar and salt in your recipes. These numbers, might be tweaked a little bit depending on the original recipe that you're using, but you can usually cut salt by 25%, and have it not really be that noticeable. Same with sugar. You can usually cut that by about a third from the recipe and have it not, be missed. Also, if you serve food warm, that can help disguise the reduced sugar. So if you have a sweet tooth person in your household that you think might realize that extra 1/3 of the sugar is missing, then serve the dish warm, and they might not be able to notice. You can skim the fat, right, from soup, stews, and stocks. This one can be It's a little more involved to do. It's a little more involved, but basically you can make your stock and then you refrigerate that afterwards, and all of that hardened fat, right, will go to the surface. And then you just skim that hardened fat off, and now you've got reduced fat stock, stew, soup. And then you can eat small, frequent meals throughout the day. If it's difficult for you to sit down and have a big meal, or um, if you have big energy fluctuations throughout the day, snacks can be really helpful. I know we're all very busy, and sometimes people forget to eat meals, or don't have time to make themselves a good lunch when they're getting into the day. So these snacks can be helpful. Also, think about your meal prepping. Try to, uh, if you can, prep your meals. Take an afternoon a day, or an afternoon a week, or a couple hours a week to cut up your vegetables, to maybe batch cook some big meals, and then you can freeze the leftovers. So I like to make a big soup, and then I have actually little individual freezer, kind of 1 ounce freezer, silicone freezer trays that I put the soup into, and then I can freeze that and take it out in a week, a couple weeks, and I've got some ready to go soup that has been homemade. And then also incorporate these changes slowly. Have already given you guys lots of tips to do, and we'll continue to have more through my presentation, but you absolutely don't need to go home and do everything all at once, because that would be a huge undertaking, and the more effect, the more sustained results, or people see more sustained results from incorporating these changes slowly and focusing on behaviors and habits. So, yeah, with time, right, you add on and add on, and you have an increasingly healthy diet that you can enjoy. And also do the best you can each day with what you have, right? We all have our days where we eat a little healthier, and our days where we might go get some fast food because it's all overwhelming. So, just uh, take every day with a grain of salt. And if you end up getting some fast food, think about how you can make that meal a little bit healthier. Maybe get a salad, maybe instead of the extra large fries, or you get a medium, focus on our portion control. There's lots of things that you can do. And now, some tips for healthy holiday cooking. I am totally blown away that it is already, December 18th. Mid-December, we've got the holidays are just upon us, and I wanted to give you all some good tips. So think about some substitutions that you can make, right? Instead of egg, you could use egg whites. Instead of oil or butter, you can use applesauce or mashed bananas. I actually really like to use applesauce in my cooking, because it makes the food a little softer, a little moist, more moist. Instead of butter, you can try some chicken vegetable broths. Right? We want to use low-fat cheeses instead of high-fat cheeses. Evaporated skim milk or yogurt instead of heavy cream. And then herbs and spices instead of sugar and salt. And then experiment with whole wheat flour instead of white flour, and see if you can blend those two, or if you can just switch from one to the other if it won't be missed. And then some healthier dessert options that you could try, right? Desserts usually served at Christmas time are generally pretty high in fats and carbohydrates. So instead of an apple pie, you might want to try an apple crisp or baked apples. Uh, right? And thinking about the pumpkin pie filling, fat-free evaporated milk, something we learned from the first slide, could go a long way to make this dish a little healthier. And then for your pie crust, you can skip it all together, or you could try some ginger snaps or ginger pie crust. And then have some fun festive fruit as a dessert. Turn your bananas into little snowmen. I've seen it where you can have the banana, either the whole banana, you can add a little strawberry hat to it, some raisin eyes, or sometimes people like to slice bananas and skewer them, so you have, different banana slices all in a row. With have fun with it. You could do a colorful fruit salad, and yeah, and then, talking about some Alzheimer's and dementia holiday tips. So, hey, holiday, it's fun to decorate your home and put up those decorations and have those meals and have everyone come over. And that can be um, really great to have those connection to memories, and, encourage sharing some memories and connections. Maybe in your holiday table, you can talk about some of your food traditions and the foods that you have. Keep decorations in the room and around the tables to a minimum, though, right? They can sometimes be a little distracting and overwhelming if we have too much. And then keep a high contrast between your plate and your food. It's a good recommendation for all the time. And verbalize also what's on their plate. So um, the person with Alzheimer's, dementia, memory issues really understands what they're eating, especially if the holiday food isn't always routine food. So that reminder might be really helpful. And then help the elder by adding condiments and toppings onto their plates, and serve with easy to eat pieces, especially if there's a big group gathering, right? It's harder to keep an eye on the person with Alzheimer's dementia. So, make sure start that person off with a plate that is easy for them um, to eat with. And then that's kind of a good segue here to my last topic, talking about meal times with dementia. So we're gonna, first of all, start by observing what's happening during the meal. If you're usually if you're usually the one feeding the individual, or if someone else does, right? That you want to kind of observe what's being done and just stay out of the mix. So uh, don't try to correct or anything, right? We're just looking at what's happening. And then you want to observe before the meal starts until the last bite, and look at how much has been eaten on the plate. I also want to think about, are there any kind of signs of pain, right? Any kind of facial grimacing, holding hand to mouth? Oh, maybe there's a toothache going on because they keep holding the side of their face. And then you also want to take inventory, around your home, right? What is if you're sharing the home with someone with Alzheimer's dementia, it's a lot easier to kind of keep track. If you're, coming in to their home, right? You want to think about what foods have been eaten since your last visit. Take away any expired or spoiled items, and then observe to see if there's any kind of changes around the home. And there are so many factors that affect food intake. I just mentioned one maybe toothache, right? But there could be digestive system issues. There could be some sort of pain in the body, be it tooth or otherwise. Chronic illness, some constipation is going on, or decreased saliva as well. Maybe it's harder for the individual to chew, break down food, um, difficulty chewing and swallowing, um, maybe some cognitive impairment, mental changes going on. Are they still able to recognize food as food, utensils as utensils? Are they remembering that they've eaten, or that it's time to eat? So all of these factors can affect food intake, which makes it a little tricky, right, to figure out what the issue is, because we've observed maybe that the person with Alzheimer's dementia is eating less. Now we've got to think about, oh, why is that? What's going on with them? Are their dentures still fitting correctly? Is there any kind of health issue or mood issues going on? And then, also fluid is so important. I mentioned right earlier in the slide presentation that our sense of, you know, we still need to be hydrated, but our sense of thirst reduces as we age. So it could be what's going on here, that someone is just not feeling that they're thirsty. Maybe there's some arthritis or other pain that's going on that is just preventing them from thinking about drinking water, wanting to drink water. And then also concerns about incontinence is a huge factor. where someone doesn't drink water because they're worried about having an embarrassing accident later on. And but there's lots of ways to get water. So if you see someone's drinking less water, all right, you want to encourage them to drink lots, maybe add some fruit infused water, offer foods with high water contents like soups. I mentioned iceberg lettuce earlier, cucumbers, tomatoes, watermelons, strawberries. Those are all great hydrating foods. And then limit the beverages with added sugar. So, unfortunately, your can of Coca-Cola doesn't really make it into this hydration tip. And then have have water, uh, these hydrating foods always available, and continually to offer them all day long. Some other tips for specific food items. Meats are delicious, they're great in protein, but they can be hard to chew and swallow. And if that is the case, mix meat with a condiment. Uh, you can do, instead of pork chop, pulled pork sandwich, maybe pour some gravy over your meat and serve it with something softer like potatoes, bread, put it into a soup or a stew, and then, just cut up as much as is essential. You don't want to overwhelm someone with a huge pile of meat on their plate. And then pureed foods, if you're um if the person you're caring for is more on a pureed diet, like mashed potatoes, hot cereal, eggs, creamed soups, or pureed soups and veggies, milkshakes, and smoothies are all really helpful. Um, you can serve finger foods are excellent, where someone can pick them up themselves. It doesn't have to worry about it. Have fiddling with the utensils or fumbling with the fork to get the food onto the plate. So finger foods really make it a lot easier for someone to feed themselves. You can cut foods into pieces, soup, serve it in a mug. You've got a nice handle here, and couldn't just drink my soup in a mug. Way better than having to spoon it. And then some general tips to add condiments, butter, fruit toppings. Sometimes, right, it's better to get the person to eat the food than not eat the food. So adding these things can help get those nutrients in. And then offer maybe 1 to 2 food items at a time. Having a big plate with 5 different food items could be really overwhelming. And then, as I mentioned before, the holiday tips, right? Again, verbalize where food is on the plate, what food's on the plate. And, you can help to place their hand on the plate, on the beverage. So they're very oriented, especially if there's some vision problems, very oriented to where everything is. So they feel comfortable eating. Right. And then for your meal setting, right, think about quiet room, not a whole lot of distractions, don't need to have the TV going on in the background. Use simple, plain dishes. And then there's so many great adaptive dining guards that are dining aids that could be used, like plate guards, these utensils, right, with a slant scoop dish that can help make it easier for someone to eat, easier for the food to stay on. The utensils, section bases, cups with lids, bibs, weighted silverware. There's a lot of options out there nowadays for your plates and utensils. And then make eating comfortable and casual. Hey, there's a lot to it. We just talked about all kinds of different things that you need to do and think of and be aware of, but we want to make sure that meals are enjoyable. um, as well. And then during the meal, stick to the small portions. Start with your most nutritious foods. It's that way, hopefully they get consumed more. So, you know, even though dessert first is really fun, we're gonna want to stay away from that. Offer water throughout the meal. That way, if there is decreased saliva or issues chewing, it helps the food go down a little easier. And think about the taste, smells, textures, temperatures of food acceptance, and if that will be acceptable to the person. Allow lots of time to eat, and maybe you want to take a break. Maybe it is um, a lot to consume a whole meal all at once. You want to eat a portion of it now and a portion of it in 20 minutes. That's fine. That's a great practice to do. And if someone's not interested in eating at that moment, that's okay. Try again later. Try multiple times maybe to get them to eat, or you can encourage eating, throughout the meal. Oh, you know, Diane, did you try your fish? Oh, here, Diane, there's some fish for you. So you can, just keep kind of positively reinforcing to eat the food. And with that, yeah, encourage eating. Like, this guy is very excited about eating in the picture. He's great at encouraging himself and probably his dinner companions to eat their foods. So, you can say something like, "Oh, would you like a drink?" Or, "How does your food taste?" If you see that they're not, that they've kind of stopped eating, that will help remind them, "Oh yeah, there's food. I'm eating. Take a bite." Place items all within easy reach. Um, if someone is having difficulty feeding themselves, take that hand over hand feeding technique where they have got the utensil and then your hand goes over their hand and helps to guide the food to their plate or to their mouth is helpful. And try that before you go on to the full assistance of feeding them. You can sometimes gently stroke your cheek or their cheek, or place food on their lips to help them remember to eat. And socialization also encourages people to eat more. So, take a few minutes and visit as they're eating. And then reduce your distractions. Talked about the TV, turn your music down. If there is a lot of, if you've got an old table, like an old wooden table, we know those always get marked up, scraped up. And sometimes those grooves in the wood and different markings on your table can be really distracting during eating. So it might be helpful, as this gentleman did in the picture, to put a white tablecloth down just to cover up those marks. And then strategies for some picky eaters, right? Create a snack plan. Maybe offer variety of snacks a few times a day. Sneak in added protein or pureed vegetables, more nutrition into your foods. That's right. You can add in powdered milk to milk, smoothies, soups, etc. You could do the same with protein powder. You can add soups and bone broths and vegetable stocks to rice to help make them more nutritious. Maybe a nutrition supplement after speaking with your doctor could be the thing. But really, the key is for the food to be accepted. So whatever ways that you can do to make your food accepted is a good thing. And I put some resources to learn more. So there's some recipes. You can learn about nutrition guidelines, some of the eating patterns I've talked about. And then I also put a couple community resources for the SNAP program and then the Bucks Double Up Food Bucks. And thank you all.